Welcome to Drum and Drummer, a podcast focused on drums, drumming and drummers. I'm George Pickering and that's Ben Winty, and we are both professional drummers in this business we call music. So stick around and join us as we pass the time whilst trying to stay in time.
Yeah, but that's because you're dead inside. You don't want to play anymore.
Welcome to Drum and Drummer.
Drum and Drummer. How are you today, Ben?
I'm okay, thanks, mate. Yeah, all good.
Yeah.
I think we should start off, obviously, with the sad passing of Taylor from Foo Fighters.
Honestly, like one of the biggest shocks ever. Because I found out, I woke up at like 5 on that Saturday morning and I saw it and I was like, that's not true. You know, I still can't quite believe it. Like, you know, I sent it to you and it just said American drummer Taylor Hawkins dead at 50. And I think what I thought was I'd seen pictures of him on the Foo Fighters Instagram playing in Argentina. I think it was their last gig. And he seemed so, you know, he was doing 2.5 hour gig and he was so phenomenal. And it's just like, and now he's dead. You know, like you kind of think with people like Lemmy and Bowie and people like that who are perhaps a bit older, sort of go, well, they were nearer the end. You know, it kind of.
Well, it's the fact that they were literally touring. You know, it's when they're still, I guess, even regardless of age, but just they're currently, you know, working. They're currently doing their thing, and it's not like that's, you know, they were in a band a while ago and they're not playing anymore necessarily. But yeah, big shock, and there's not going to be many drummers out there who haven't been influenced by his drumming and his career.
I'll just say quickly, my almost like not tribute to him, but like sort of what I got was when I hadn't heard of the Foo Fighters when I was a young teenager, and then my drum teacher put me onto them. And I remember before you went to the lesson, he'd have a TV on, and every week he'd just have the Wembley Stadium gig just on repeat. And I was like, who's that? He's like, oh, it's Foo Fighters. And then after that, he taught me so many of their songs, you know, The Pretender, Best of You, No Way Back, because he was the biggest fan ever. And after that, I was a fan for life, you know. And what does suck is I'd never got to see him live. And I always thought, oh, I'll see them at some point, you know, because they felt like you kind of look at the Rolling Stones and people like that and you're like, you know, they're still going and they're nearly 80. And you look at Dave Grohl and the rest of the band and they looked like they're going to keep going forever. And they're just this band. I think that's why it was a shock. They're
such a force, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like, you know, still, you know, still banging out albums and still incredibly active and constantly doing stuff.
And they almost seem like they were getting just better every tour. You know, the shows were longer and just I'd heard just, you know, even just down to like Taylor's drum solos were getting bigger and it didn't seem like it was petering out. They were very much, I think, at their peak. So that's why it was just a shock. But as you said, you know, I think if you're a rock drummer, you know, you would have taken something from his drumming but even just, I don't know, the way I could, you know, we could do a whole podcast talking about him, but just the way he seemed as a person, he just seemed like he'd always wanted to play stadiums, and now he was playing stadiums and he did it. And he was, he just seemed like the happiest. I saw someone just say that he just exuded happiness and he always just seemed so upbeat and sprightly. And it was just, it's a tremendous loss. Because I used to think, you know, he's 50 and he was still playing so well. And I was like, I don't know. I think that's why it's a shock, because he was like top of his game, and now, to put it bluntly, he's dead, you know, and it sucks. But I think, you know, we've always got the music, and and I'll say one more thing. I did actually message that drum teacher because I didn't really know who to talk to, because I still am just very sad about it and have been since I found out, and I'm constantly Googling things, like trying to find out like what happened or if Dave has said anything. But I messaged my drum teacher because I was like, I'm sure he'll understand. And he just, we sort of had a nice chat about it, and we hadn't spoken in a while. We just kind of, we just said it's so shit that he's gone, but look at, you know, how many people he inspired and stuff. So very sad, but you know.
R.I.P. Taylor.
Yeah, rest in peace, Taylor. Right.
Well, today we've episode something slightly different. We have our first guest on the show.
How exciting.
Yeah, so we had a nice chat with Sam Sanders.
Yep.
A guy we both know. He's a drummer, drum teacher, regular gigger.
Yep.
And stuff. And we had a nice big chat with Sam about his career and his,
everything, really.
About everything, yeah. His setup, his, first kits and what got him into drumming in the first place and everything he's sort of been up to. So, but before we do that,
yep,
we've had an email.
Have we?
A little bit of correspondence, yes. We've had an email from Anne.
Yep.
Who's written in to say, you may or may not be interested to hear that James Morrison's drummer is bald. Not only that, but so is his keyboard player. His bass guitarist's hair is receding, and the lead lead guitarist wears a cap which could be hiding thinning hair. Or not. My theory is that this is all to make the singer's top knot look stunning, particularly if his hair is not at the fullness of former years. You're welcome.
That's a good theory. Get everyone else bald. It's like the old thing of have ugly friends so you look more attractive, I guess.
Yeah. So maybe James Morrison has thought about that, or it's just the fact his band are old.
Yep. If you're listening, James Morrison, do write in.
Because he's not had a hit for 20 years. So that was from Anne, who, full disclosure, is my mother.
I didn't know whether you were going to say that. But
yeah. She's a massive James Morrison fan, and she goes to see him every time he tours.
That's really sweet.
I know for a fact she, because I saw her on Mother's Day, she went to see him down in Bournemouth the other week.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, she loved it.
Yeah.
She loved it.
Seated or standing?
Seated.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's in her 70s.
Yeah.
I think most of the people in the audience are as well.
Yeah, it's true.
But she goes and they go and stay in a hotel, have a lovely little trip to Bournemouth and enjoyed a bit of James Morrison. But anyway, here's our interview with Sam Sanders.
Enjoy.
Sanders.
Who knows?
Who knows? Find out. Welcome, Sam.
Woo, what up?
Welcome to Drum and Drummer.
Thank you very much for having me.
So you are our first guest.
This is a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure on both sides.
Yeah.
Don't fuck this up, guys.
I mean, you've listened to some of the show, so I think you know what to expect. And I think you know that professional bar is set very, very low.
Well, it depends. If there's been 20 minutes of podcast so far, and I'm cutting in halfway through now after, then now the drumming talk starts. If this is at the start of the podcast, then if anyone wants to skip 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure there'll be a
drum beat.
Yeah, there'll have been some inane bullshit chat. But I'm going to get straight down to business. Who are you and what do you do?
My name's Sam Sanders. I'm a drummer based in the south of England. I've been a professional drummer for 6 years. Doing a bunch of different stuff. So my main bread and butter at the moment is teaching. I run a drum teaching school called the Hampshire Drum School, which kind of has a petty story behind it, but I'll tell you that in a bit. And then I've also worked with bands. So I currently play for a country singer called Danny McMahon and a progressive metal band that I joined last year called Lost in Thought. And then on top of that, I do some musical theatre work annually, sometimes some local theatre, some professional contract stuff, and whatever I can really get my hands on, I suppose. It's the short of it.
So you're covering a lot of bases.
Yeah.
As we find, it's the common thing, isn't it? You got to be doing more than one thing.
Yeah, I found when everyone at uni, in your first year, you start studying music and all the drummers are like, I want to be a session drummer. I'm going to be a studio drummer, or I'm going to be a live drummer. And then you get out into the real world and you're like, all right, well, that pays 50 quid. This pays that. And I've only got 3 of them booked over the next 3 months. So it's like none of it's covering rent.
Yeah, I got a lot of time to fill.
Yeah.
So where did you? So you studied drums. Did you study drums at uni?
Yeah, I studied at BIM, Bristol.
Oh, really? Okay, so we got right.
I
BIM.
didn't even know that. Yeah.
Is it the same? Is it the same like BIM as Brighton, but just in Bristol? Do you know what I mean? Are they same, or it's just coincidentally that their names?
I don't know if architecturally it's the same.
But they're same, like under the same umbrella.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go, George. There's one in Bristol.
No, yeah, there's a few because I think Brighton was the OG, and then they made one in Bristol.
Oh, get that dig in.
Yeah, gotta get that dig in. That's the original one. But I think was one in Manchester and there's one in Dublin. But I'm pretty sure they had to change it from like the first name, as in like it was Brighton Institute of Modern Music, BIM. But then they couldn't do that in Dublin because you can't have a uni that's called DIN. So they had to change it to like British. But even that, it's like Dublin, it's not British. And now they've got one in Berlin, I think. So they're all over.
I'm glad they've gone back to places with B.
Yeah.
A little bit annoyed they got Manchester.
Yeah.
Go Birmingham.
Yeah.
I believe it's now the British and Irish Modern Music Institute, which is annoying because I really want it. I want them to change it to BIMmy.
Yeah.
And they won't. It's just BIM.
What, with like an I at the end, or?
Yeah, B-I.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah. Because if it's got Irish in there now, surely it's like BIM, like more I's.
Well,
like...
the institute is now
OBIM.
OBIM. Welcome to McBimmies.
Yeah. Exactly. So anyway, you went to BIM. What did you do fresh out of BIM? That's what I want to know, because this is the tricky part. Because I think when you're at uni, I feel like everyone in first year, you got these goals and you're like, oh, it's going to be not easy, but like, oh, I'm going to leave and I'm going to do this and that. And then you get to third year and you're like, shit, I'm leaving soon. And I you know, what was the first year out of uni like? That's what I want to know.
Probably similar to a lot of people. So, well, I actually spent my third year studying things that I thought would not just further me as a drummer, because I kind of obviously spent so long just doing drums. So I started playing when I was 12. So by the time I got to uni, I'd been playing already for 7-8 years, something like that. And then, and then studying intensively for a few years, like just on drums. I spent my third year doing, I guess, more the academic side of music. So I ended up doing more theory, composition, and stuff like that. I had a wicked composition tutor and theory teacher. My composition tutor, Andy. Oh, I'm going to forget his name now. I'll remember it in a minute. Adam. Yeah, amazing. I can't remember his surname for the life of me. I can see his face. Absolutely great guy. He was like a proper Devon man. Said all of his R's like an American. Really hard. But he was amazing, and he took us through loads of composition and arrangement stuff, and loads of composers, and it was really interesting learning that side of it. Away from like being in a studio or being with a band and being like, okay, here's my drum part, everyone else do everything else. Really interesting, like building up parts and working out how parts work with each other, I guess.
Just to jump in, so did you ever learn, have you ever learned any other instruments, or have you just done drums?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we go back far enough, I think everyone's favourite year 2 instrument, the recorder, and then sweet picked on that bad boy until year 3, and then
got all the girls, and then throw the recorder in the bin.
Yeah, and then sacked it off before it came cool, and then bit of violin and bit of piano and keyboard and things like that, like sort of typical sort of early school instruments, I guess. And then, but I actually played for a while. I'd played piano longer than I played drums. But it was one of those things where I think you guys probably found the same thing, where you're playing your other instrument and you're like, oh yeah, I kind of like music, it's all right. And then when you first properly started learning drums, and there's that spark, and you're like, oh god, this is awesome,
Yeah.
There we go. I mean, that leads on to the question: how did you start, and why did you start, and where did you start?
That's a lovely triple.
Yeah.
Pow. Yeah. I like it.
Like I said, I started when I was 12, and my brother was into music already. So my brother Tom played guitar.
Hang on. George, what's your brother called?
Tom.
My brother's called Tom. So we've all got a brother called Tom.
Well, there we go.
Let's end it now. Thanks very much for listening. We
solved it.
We found a winner. Cheers. See you next week.
We know if BIM need more students and more alumni, they just need to make sure everybody called Tom has a younger brother or sister.
This is it. Yeah, you can't
just
go to BIM.
At school, they're dishing out music lessons. Right, who wants to do oboe? Who wants to do flute? You could do piano. And they're like, who has got a brother called Tom?
Yeah.
Lisa, there's a pair of drumsticks. Off you go.
Yeah. So, when did you start playing drums, and why, and where?
My brother Tom played guitar and bass, and he was having lessons locally in Winchester, where I live. And so he was like, every week he would come back, and his guitar teacher Phil had burnt him a CD of whatever songs they were learning.
Sign of the times.
Innit? Yeah. He had the one of the old iMacs with the different coloured, the fat ones with the plastic casing, which I thought was mental. My mate Stu had one, and I remember thinking, like, how is the computer all in the screen? I mean, the screen was like 6 foot deep, but
where's the tower?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, where's the separate bit where everything works? And so my brother would come home with these little burnt CDs, and it would have like I don't know, like Megadeth and Pantera and like Iron Maiden and loads of stuff that I'd never heard before. Like my mum was well into music. Like my mum used to play loads of like Bon Jovi and stuff like that. So I was sort of already desensitized to a bit of rock. So then when my brother started bringing heavier stuff home, it was like, what's this shit? This is sick, And I remember listening to. So I remember the first point in my head where I remember trying to play the drum, like thinking like, I want to give this a go. So like my brother brought home. I remember him having like a CD of like Metallica's Black Album. I remember like I think it was Sad But True was playing on his CD player, and like just thinking like the drums are so prominent. Like listening to it now, the drums are so prominent in that mix, and so heavy, and you kind of almost couldn't escape them. So I remember spending more and more time whenever my brother was practicing his guitar or listening to what he was supposed to be learning. I spent more and more time just sort of like shuffling up a bit closer to try and hear it. And then I remember the point I remember is he was learning Eagles of Death Metal song. I think the song was called "I Want You So Hard." Is it that one?
I know the one. Yeah, it's a classic.
And I remember and he practiced along to the music video on the early days of YouTube, and I remember it really well because I had like Jack Black and Dave Grohl and all them cameoing in it. And what's his name? Lead singer from Queens of the Stone Age is the drummer. I can't remember his name.
Josh.
Yeah,
Josh. Yeah. He I remember, yes, and him getting loads of shots in the music video of him playing on the kit. And so my brother would be sat at the computer and he's trying to play along, and then I was sort of sat a foot behind him in my chair, like sort of doing this and trying to, wave my arms around trying to copy what I was seeing in the music video. And then it sort of just went from there. So I think I must have at some point said to my mum, I think I just started secondary school at this point, and I remember I must have said to my mum at some point, I want to learn drums. And
how did that go down?
Not bad, but it was one of those things where my mum was like, "Ask your dad." So, I was really lucky actually. So I used to go to my dad's place on the weekends, and I was really fortunate. He bought us a kit. It was a little. Oh, I should have got it down from the loft. I've got it here.
So this is what I was going to move on to. Yeah, like first drum kit.
Yeah,
we've talked about ours before, but it's that, especially when you're that age. We started young, where you can't really go and buy your own drum kit, so you got to go to
No.
You got to ask that question, and I guess the parents have to make that decision of.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember my pocket money was, I think I used to get 50p every fortnight, and I was actually chatting to one of my students yesterday. It's like, oh, do you have a good birthday? Because his birthday was on the weekend, and he's like, oh yeah, and I've been saving up my £10 a week to. I was like, fucking £10 a week. Right, I definitely could have bought a drum kit if I was getting £10 a week.
I wish I was getting £10 a week now.
Yeah, and anyway, so I was really fortunate. My dad bought me this little Trixon kit, which I've never met anyone that's played a Trixon kit. But if you Google them, they're like a legit. It's not like one of those ones where it will be like, you'll get Junior a drum kit and it's like percussion 2, 3, 4, and it's like, oh, that sounds like a drum brand. But if you Google it, it's non-existent. Yeah. So it was, but I've still never met anyone that's had one. But it was Fusion.
I've never heard of it. Have you heard of it, George?
No, never.
It's a cheap knockoff of Dixon. It was Fusion sizes. So it was 10, 12, 14, and I think it was a 20 kick, and came with a little snare that would throw itself off by itself. So if you play and it just boom.
That's annoying.
Yeah. Back up again.
So did you say you've still got it?
I've still got it. It's in the loft, yeah. Wow. I should have put it down to show you. But
you'll have to take a picture of it at some point and send it to us and we can get it on the Instagram.
I've taken a picture of me.
Is it any good? Was it or?
It took I played it for a good 4 years, I think. I think it was my main squeeze until I think mid year 10, it was all right. I think I think it would have sounded better if I didn't have that. I don't know if you guys were the same when you first start trying to tune your own kit and you think, oh, it sounds a bit crap, so you just start cranking it.
Yeah, if in doubt, give it a crank.
Yeah. And I remember playing. So I used to. This will be turning back the clock a little bit as well, especially if we've got anyone younger than us listening. And the way I used to practice. So my kit was at my dad's for a little bit, and then when my dad moved, my kit then went to my very forgiving grandparents, and they only lived up the road from me, like a couple of roads up on the housing estate. So and they had a spare room, so my drum kit then went in there, and I used to practice with my mum's tape player on the windowsill behind my head because I didn't have any headphones either, and you couldn't plug bloody headphones into the thing. So I just had like my mum's like I don't think you could even call it a boombox. It wasn't even that big. And I practiced with her tapes and like the speaker like flat against the back of my head so I could hear the songs. But the thing with the tuning, I remember playing when I got a CD player. I think I must have nicked one of my brother's ones, and then this was after like a year or so. I remember my mates getting really into Kiss, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you got to get this best of
the band,
CD.
Yeah."
The band, yeah. Not each other.
Yeah.
Wasn't that kind of school? And we were, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you should get this best of CD." So I was like, okay. And I remember listening to all the songs and then trying to work them all out and playing them. And I don't know if you know the song. I think it's Strutter. At the start of Strutter, they got this tom fill that's just like flams all around, just black and boom, 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 and playing it on my little kit and it go black boom, 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 boom. It's got absolutely cranked it. And anytime the pitch ever dipped in them, I was like, must be out of tune. Crank it back up. Yeah, but that's how it works. Yeah, so I had some really forgiving grandparents. I think my nan as well. I think, bless her, I think she thought I was learning. I think she used to love her orchestral music, and so I think she thought I was bringing round some timps or some orchestral stuff, thinking, oh, this is going to be a very well cultured house. How wrong she was.
Yeah. Good old grandparents. I had the same thing. I think I've said it on here before. That was where my kit went when I was however old, when I got my first one, because we didn't have any room in the house. So we put it around my nan's, and it would be every Saturday morning I was allowed to go around. But the thing about mine, it was so untuned, but also it was massive, and there was no dampening. There was no cushion in the kick drum. There was just, it was as boomy as you could have, imagine like the worst school drum kit ever, that just you hit a low tom and it lasts, for like 20 seconds. And good on the grandparents for like putting up with that, because it's like, I think, a loud untuned drum kit and you're learning, it's like the loudest noise in the world.
It must have sounded so unsatisfying.
Yeah
I remember that, I think that maybe just partially deaf by the time that, grandparents, it kind of makes sense.
Is it?
Stick it with Nan, because she can't hear anyway. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. I'll say one thing. It's like there are certain instruments that sound worse when you're not good at them, I reckon. In terms of like violin. Yeah, that's the main one. If you hear someone learning the violin, it's the worst noise ever. Whereas I think drums, you can perhaps get away with it a bit more, because it's like the sounds are there and you're just hitting them, as opposed to...
And there's only...
screeching.
Like 8 things you can hit. So that variable isn't good. It's not going to change. No. Once you've heard the kick drum, that's the kick drum. It's not going to...
Yeah.
It's not going to change. You just hear it at a time.
Unless you crank it.
This is it. Yeah. I used to crank mine as well. And I remember turning up to a gig with my first drum kit, and the other drummer on the gig was like, "Oh, this is like, it's got like a really jazzy tuning, this, and it was just because I tuned everything so high. Because I was the same. I was like, I think it was, I do the snare and then be like, oh, the toms, they surely have to be the same, like not the same, but I have to tighten them as much. And then you learn later on, no, finger tight, then a bit more. But
so, carrying on through your school journey.
Yeah.
So you get a drum kit.
Yep.
Parents are happy with you to play. Lessons at school?
No. So where my brother had guitar lessons, it was a little music studios in a bit of Winchester called Winnell, and there were 3 booths there. I don't know if they used it as a rehearsal rooms or for recording, or both maybe. There were 3 rooms, and so like guitar lessons happened in sort of the one closest to the door. Then bass was behind that, and then drums were at the back. And there was a chap called John Evans who, shout out John Evans wherever you are at the moment, mate.
Big up, John.
Big up, John. He used to teach at the back on one of the old Pearl exports. And
classic. That's just classic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pearl export. Oh.
None of this
modern fiesta of drums.
There's none of that. None of this like new Pearl export stuff, or the,
No, there was a particular era of export that was just
mint.
There was no flash about it. It was quite stern.
Yeah.
But it was solid.
Oh, you'd actually just keep out on it.
It was just like, for 500 quid, bosh. That's gonna do you a good 10 years.
Yeah.
And it had what you'd expect as well. It had Remo pinstripes all around the palms.
Oh, that's just dream. This is a dream. 90s, early noughties kit, innit? Remo pinstripes on a Pearl export.
Well, I'll say one more thing, especially at a school.
I want one. I want to get one.
The school snare drum is always like battered to the absolute edge. There's just like a little bit of white left on the skin, and then the rest is just all...
And the hoop's warped.
Yeah.
The hoop's slightly warped, so you can just never get an even tune. Yeah, exactly. And all the coating's gone.
Yeah.
And it's a steel snare drum.
Yeah.
It's a steel snare drum. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, it was, and I remember it just having like all of the thud you could dream of. Do you know what I mean? And he had these they were Peisty, I think they were the old Peisty Alphas crashes, and hi-hats, and then undisclosed brand of ride cymbal, which I think it was a Zildjian one. But who knows how long it had been there, because all the writing had been worn off and logos and stuff.
And they got that little bit of green mould just coming on there. Yeah.
Where you can't tell if it's the varnish is gone or if it's got a new varnish of a different kind. Yeah, and I remember that thinking that sounded great. So then when I got, and everyone at the time was like, oh yeah, Zildjian's the best ever. And so I remember thinking at the time, I remember being like, right, I need a new crash cymbal. Can't afford Zildjian. So I got Sabian. Because I remember someone saying, I think it might have been John saying actually, that that where they were sort of the companies are related, you know. And so I thought, well, hopefully it'd be, you know, the same quality and stuff. But yeah, so I had lessons with John until my GCSEs. So and he taught me completely by ear. So there'd be a couple of times where he'd be like, oh, here's a little chart of something, but it was pretty much whack a tune on, figure out the part, play through it, you know, play it as accurately as I could, then we'd move on to something else. And I actually used the songs that I learned with John to teach now, because it's like, okay, his method worked, cool. I ain't changing it.
Just quickly, what are your top 3 go-to songs to teach? Because as a teacher, I have a few classics that.
A new section of the podcast. Here we go. Teacher Wars.
Yeah.
Who's the best teacher?
Definitely Sam. He's got a cooler name, Hampshire Drum School. But we'll get to that in a bit. Look at that. He's got merch. Fucking he's
I've got my merch t-shirt on for the studio. George, what you got?
Just black. Just a black shirt, really. No merch today. What are your 3 favourite songs to teach? Not to go off on a tangent.
Favourite or like
what a
just
key?
Kind of I
guess quite key that every student you teach will eventually pass through. I.e., I know George, Seven Nation Army.
Yeah, Seven.
That's just forever in the book for the beginners.
Yeah.
I always it's strange. I taught Seven Nation Army for ages, and the only reason I stopped is because I got annoyed at it. It's like, yeah, it's great, it's quarter notes, right? Fuck off. Yeah. I've always, but not to say it's not a good song to teach. That one, if I've ever got a student that struggles just with holding a quarter note, then Seven Nation Army is then my backup. I've been like, right, this needs some intense practice. But the first song I always use is Only Friend by a band called The Temperance Movement, which is like, I don't know, like 70 BPM, like super slow. And like I use that for building up a quarter note beat, and then once they've got that down, then doing eighth notes to it as well. And then from there, I usually move on to Boulevard of Broken Dreams by Green Day to get that double kick in. Or if that's too fast, I now use 21 Guns by Green Day, because like the mix on their songs, the drums, like Trey Cool's drums, are just so in your face. Like it's like, okay, so can you hear where the snare drum is? It's like, don't lie to me. You can hear it. Like, I see your nosebleed. All right, you can hear it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I use either of those two, and then after that, it's a toss up. So for song number 3, it's a toss up between "Highway to Hell" by AC/DC or "Fight for Your Right to Party" by the Beastie Boys.
Oh,
yeah.
And that one's fun because it switches between quarter notes on the ride and eighth notes on the hi-hat, like 2 bars on, 2 bars off sort of thing, still with an eighth note kick pattern, so it still has dum gap, but where like playing quarter notes on the ride cymbal over that pattern, like that's like a little thing where it's like, okay, now we're kind of blending the two worlds together before we move on to some harder shit. So yeah. So I think I just gave you like 6 songs. But...
yeah. It's interesting because it's like, yeah, I always go with "We Will Rock You" is like the first song I teach anyone. Like, because it's like, if it's like their first ever lesson, I always want them to feel like they played something. So I always, the first lesson I teach someone is always the same. I always go like, right, by the end of this session, you'll be able to play a song by Queen. And especially if like the parents in the room, they get really excited. And I go like, have you heard of Queen? And then like, the kids, sometimes it's like, yes, sometimes no, but the parent will be like, oh my God, yeah. And it will play "We Will Rock You." And usually they'll get it in like 10 minutes. And then everyone's like, what? I can play a song by Queen? It just sort of blows their mind because it's, you can really just do it with low tom and kit and snare. But then, yeah, from there, I sort of do Seven Nation Army. And then beyond that, I try and just do any song with like a basic, 4/4 money beat, so it could be like Uptown Funk, or if they're a fan of rock, do Back in Black, or just sort of go, look, this beat, you can put it on anything. And but I think
that's how we make a living.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. But I think that's so key. Your drum teacher at school, it's like, that's what's fun about drums, going like, oh, I can hear, it's the same with, when you first got into drumming, as like younger than that, you sort of listening to the drums, you're going, what's going on there? Like, how do I do that? I think that's what's exciting. So I think that's why, like, teaching songs and lessons is so important, because it keeps it exciting for students.
I wonder what it is, that because I think we're all the same, and I think probably most drummers are, like, when I first started getting into the music that really appealed to me, so it was through friends' older brothers, and it was hearing Nirvana, Green Day, that sort of thing, and Incubus and Lit, and that sort of Limp Bizkit, and it was the drums that just stood out. It was the drums that I was like, yep, I didn't give a fuck about the guitar. No matter how good it was or whatever, and whether you like the song or not as well, it was just like, oh, it was the drums. It was the drums that was like, yeah, more of that, please. I wonder what it is. What makes us... Is it because we've got a brother called Tom? Like, does that... A drum kits have Toms? I mean, is this...
secretly want to be closer to our brothers, is this it?
Maybe, yeah.
But yeah,
or do we
what it is.
Want to hit them? Is maybe
what brings us? Yeah. Anyway, we're going to take a short little break, but we will be back in a bit. Bye.
Bye.
Welcome back to Drum and Drummer. We've got Sam Sanders with us.
It's me. Hello.
Is it Sanders or Sanders?
Oh, don't start that debate.
Do you know what? Yeah, I was thinking that, because I probably say Sanders because of the Sam Sanders.
The alliteration is
Sam Sanders.
So my family always says Sanders. Anyone north of Watford will say Sanders, or anyone in the West Country as well will say Sanders.
Do you care?
Not really, no. As long as you don't say Saunders, because that's a different name.
Yeah.
That's SAU.
In it. Yeah.
That was the battle I had from. I even remember being in year. I must have been in year one. I remember someone writing Saunders on my exercise book, and me saying, "No.
Yeah.
You scribble shit out, mate."
You're dead to me.
But I think something that settles that debate is that the name comes from the Christian name Alexander. So I suppose if you're going with Alexander, then it'd be Sanders.
Yeah,
okay.
That's true.
Can't really get Pickering wrong, can you?
Can't get Pickering wrong. Can't get Winty wrong.
You fucking can, mate. You having a laugh?
How?
Is that Mr. Whitney? Is that Mr. Wine Tie? Fucking hell.
Wine Tie sounds like a wrestling duo from WWF.
I remember on a holiday to like Mallorca or something, we were kids, and me and my brother won some competition or something on one of those like kids excursions or something, and the winner, Ben and Tom Whitney. Fuck's sake. It's just, the thing is though, once you know it, it makes sense, but the spelling is fucking weird.
Yeah,
I'd never seen. I've heard you say your surname, and then when you get the email from you, and I saw it, I was like, "Oh, that's how many consonants it had."
Yeah. We're gonna skip ahead. We did start talking about it. So, you finished at BIMI. You finished at BIM, and you're now entering the professional world of drumming. Were you at all having, learnt growing up and then going to study quite intensely, at higher education? Was there any part of you that was like, I'm done, I don't want to do it anymore? Had any of it been drilled out of you? Have you lost any passion at all, or were you more revved up than ever to give it a go?
From like college up until the end of uni, so I did a full-time music BTEC and like performance and music tech course at college, and from there, then and going into BIM as well, like I'd gone through like 5 years of seeing other students drop in like flies, being like, oh no, I can't do this, or no, there's not going to be any work in this or whatever, you know. And I think that was something that actually sort of spurred me on, was being like,
that war of attrition.
More work for me.
Yeah. Well, George, you've said before on here that by the time you finish uni, there was a lot of people
I don't know if it was
had
the
gone.
same with you, Sam, at BIM, but it was like when I started, I think there was 160 drummers, and by our final year, there was 40. And of that 40, there was only 20 that were like in the class that was for people that actually wanted to do drums. And then in that 20, on our last lesson, head of drums asked us what we want to do beyond this, and it was only about 10 of us that actually wanted to do drums. Like, even the people that got right to the end were like, nah, I'm done.
And the teacher was like, and my work here is done.
Yeah, literally.
How's progress of students from admission to graduation? I got it down to 10 this year from 160.
Yeah,
and they have a backroom prize of who can kill the dream the most.
I think because at BIM Brighton, you've got a lot more gigging musicians, haven't you, as tutors?
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I went to BIM because I already knew some of the tutors there. So there's a chap called Damon Minchella, who was my business teacher in first year, in my first year, and then I already knew him from drum course. Shout out Freddie G Drum Camp if anyone's ever been on that, or shout out Freddie G.
No, it's nothing to me.
No, I don't know who he is, but I want to shout him out as well.
Oh, okay.
It's a summer drum camp that's held in Hampshire every year, and it's been going for like 20 odd years. It's run by a guy called George Frederick, who currently works for Natal, and he gets sort of guest and like sort of celebrity drummers in for guest teaching. So like
we've not been asked, have we, George?
All right, I'm neither.
Interesting.
I was a student on it from when I was about 15, and they have sort of they have Steve White support, Paul Weller's old drummer, and Craig Blundell, who I think
Steve White loves all that shit, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely does.
Yeah.
And loads of others, and they have like session guys in like Ash Sowen and Ralph Salmons and stuff. So, but I knew Damon. Damon used to come in and play bass and sort of jam with the drummers on the course, and so I already knew him from that. And then I'd also met the head of drums, James Hester. I'd already met him at Freddie G as well. He was a guest one year, and so I was like, well, I already know these guys, so that's why I ended up going there. And apart from those guys that were still sort of doing some band stuff, and like Damon ended up playing bass for Richard Ashcroft, which is where he's still doing all these massive gigs. One of my first year drum tutors as well, Jason Bold, he disappeared after the first year as well to play with Bullet for My Valentine, and that's where he is now. He's now their
Nice.
current member, which is awesome. And but all the really, well, not all of them, but a lot of the really good and gigging musicians then left after the first year. So then, I don't know if you had the same thing at BIM, but there's a lot of I don't feel bad for shitting on them. I paid them lots of money. It's like you get a lot of has-been or almost made it, and then like, oh shit, I need another job to actually pay the rent. So they became lecturers. But and so that was sort of what it was like. And I think a lot of people ended up having their dreams crushed from that. But I think that spurred me on more, because it kind of made me want to be like, no, fuck it, I'm going to make something of this, And I'd wanted to do it since I started playing, really. I thought, obviously, like I said, there was like that sort of spark moments, but like I remember getting to music GCSE and learning loads of stuff that had nothing to do with anything that I wanted to fucking do. But then thinking like, music is fucking cool, and I really want to do, like, I want to do drums in some way. Which is why I went to college and did my BTEC and then uni. But yeah, but I had some really great ones. And as I said earlier, so I had Adam Coombs. I've remembered his surname. Adam Coombs, who was my composition and arrangement lecturer. And then a guy called Greg Cordes, who was my theory teacher as well, were amazing. And they really pushed the things that were sort of outside of drumming to sort of make my sort of music knowledge a bit more complete. And then on the side of that, I also had he was our jazz teacher in our first year, and then he sort of took us for different things throughout my course. A guy called Mark Whitlam, who amazing jazz drummer, an amazing theatre drummer, and during my time at uni, well, actually just before I went to uni, I remember getting a message from my college drum teacher, and I filled in for him on a gig. It was like a dance show, and this was like one of my first. So I'd been in bands at school. My band at school didn't actually have a name, and so like my head of year would announce us, and it's like, and please give a hand for the band.
Great name. That's a great name. Yeah.
We could never think of anything or whatever, And then, and it was a dance show, and it was like I was playing drums on stage by myself. I can't remember if there was tracks. I don't think there were. I think it was just drums, and then a group of tap dancers doing some show to their parents or whoever it was in this. It was like a little, I think it was like a little 80-seater theatre, it was in. Well, it was in Fernham Hall. So that was maybe a bit big, maybe like sort of 100 or 150. But and then that being my first sort of I guess gig, as it were, the first thing outside of the practice room, and then after that, I then got a call from a chap called Darren. Shout out Darren if you ever bother listening to this, who was a musical director locally to me, and he was like, "Oh, I came and saw so and so's dance show. I need a drummer for this production of I think it was We Will Rock You," and it was like a 1-day production of the show with a youth group. I think he paid me 30 quid for it, and I did that. And then it turns out at that time I don't know if he had only just started as an MD, but basically his career started building up, so I sort of went along with it. And one year we did like 13 shows one year. If you think, and most of those were at least a week long. So it took out a lot of time. And when I was at uni, the thing I think also that kept me going was that I wasn't there for a lot of it. Like in my second year, I was only there for 6 months. I was off for 6 months. I was there for whatever the remaining time is of the academic year, because I kept coming back down this way to do some local theatre stuff or some sort of it was local theatre stuff at that point. And then I ended up depping for my teacher Mark, because he used to do the shows at the Theatre Royal in Bath, and his career was sort of taken off well at that point as well. And he was like, "Oh, I've got some cool BBC stuff that I need to go do with like the BBC Big Band or whatever it was." So he was like, "Can you cover me like doing this production of Annie at the Theatre Royal?" So it's like, "Oh fuck yeah!" And that was like my first sort of semi-pro gig, I guess.
How old were you there? Was that second year of uni?
That was second or third year. Yeah, third year, I think.
Yeah, because I do remember BIM tutors loving that, like the fact that if you were a student that was away from BIM, they kind of quite liked it, as long as you tried to get your work done. If you were out gigging, it wasn't he's slacking off. It's like this guy, he's
surely if you're out doing the thing you're learning to do, in a semi-pro professional manner, they should be encouraging it, shouldn't they?
Yeah, exactly.
You won't make your lesson. Playing drums professionally. That's the whole point. That's the whole fucking reason I'm here. Trying to claw back some of the $3,000 a year I've been paying for this shithole.
So because I want to ask about, because I know we've talked about it in person about pantos before, because I've never done pantos, and I know that's obviously like, I don't know, something that a lot of drummers do, a lot of musicians do. It's like a good earner in December, and and like, but I kind of just wanted to ask, like, what are the good bits? What are the bad bits? How did you get into it? Where have you done it?
I got into it. So, like I said, I was doing a lot of amateur theatre, and long story short, I was doing a show in Cirencester. I think it was a production of Spring Awakening, and a chap called Rob, another shout out, Rob Rayner. Great, and he now actually MDs on, I think I'm right in saying he MDs on Lion King in town in West End now. He's a brilliant musician, great guy. Really, really lovely dude. And he was doing Spring Awakening, MDing that as like a run up to his first, like he had like a professional gig coming out, and it was his like first sort of break. So he was MDing this local show as a sort of a warm up, I guess, a practice run. And so I was recommended to him. I got in and did that gig, sort of did that for that week, and came to the end of it, shook hands, said, hopefully work with you, some other time, see you for now, and then. Didn't hear from him for at least a year. Might have been slightly longer. And then out of the blue, I got a text from him saying, "Hi Sam, hope you're well. I've got this pantomime contract in Rill in North Wales. It's 6 weeks long and it's £3,500. Do you want it? And it was like, yeah.
When was this?
2018, I think.
Yeah, fair enough.
How long had you been out of uni at that point? When did you graduate?
I graduated 2017. So I've been
out. So young.
Anyway, this panto.
Yeah. So
was there like a training period before you? Like, how long was rehearsal?
So turned up, which is step one. 6 and a bit hour drive to get there. You have to sort of go up to, not quite Liverpool, like to Chester and then into Wales. So after sort of the day of getting the kit in, so the get-in day and setting everything up and whatever, and I was requested to play on an electric kit for that one, and so once everything was sort of patched in and everything, I actually borrowed. So my kit that's behind me is a TD11, which I bought for it because I I didn't have an electric kit at the time. And I was thinking like, well, paying me £3,500, so it's like if I spend £900 on a kit, still have whatever left.
Profit on that, isn't it?
Yeah. So I got the kit, and then I borrowed the brain from a TD30.
The brain.
The brains. I've brain from a TD30 from my friend Dave, and so it was a bit of a Frankenstein kit, and I sort of borrowed his his hi-hat controller and all those things, and had like 6 pads so I could trigger.
In your experience, most pantos electric kit?
No.
Okay.
It depends on the company though, and it depends on the theatre, but usually acoustic, and they'll try and hide the drum kit as much as possible, really. But for that show, so as an experience, like if any drummers listen get a chance to do a pantomime, I suppose it's only really British drummers, isn't it? It's very much a British institution, panto, isn't it? But like if anyone ever gets the chance to do one, it's so much fun. It's a lot of work, but it's like, electric kit, get in. So then there'll be like a band call, which will be a few hours in an afternoon or something, or it'll be like the next morning, and then after that there'll be the sits. So the sits probe with the cast. So you'll then play through all the songs then with the cast singing on stage or whatever they've done so far. And then it will be like 3 dress runs, and then it's the show period, and you'll be doing. So that particular run was 37 shows, and we do like 3 show days. So you do like a show at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning for like primary school coming in, another one at 1 or 2 o'clock, and then the last one at like 6 or something.
So it's only like what? How many? So day one when you're getting your kit in.
Yep.
How many days until show 1?
Like 4.
4. Do you get your charts in advance?
Yeah. You can. It depends how ready.
Or do you just go? I'll just.
So for that one, I looked over them quite a bit. I didn't practice much because a lot of panto stuff's pop songs. So whatever is big in the year that the panto is taking place, that's going to be the songs that. So that particular year, the big sing-along number for the kids. So like the bit where it's like basically the section where they're getting all the staging ready for the big finale and everyone's getting into their finale costumes. Wishy Washy or whoever you've got being the dummy comes on stage and it's like, you've all enjoyed the show. Let's get some kids up here and sing along, And the one that year was Baby Shark.
Oh yeah, classic.
And I played Baby Shark, and this is not lying. I played Baby Shark 140 times.
So, looking back on your decision to go to BIM, do you regret it now? Is at any point playing Baby Shark, you're on 123, you go, I could have done something else in my life here.
Just look at me now, not a PowerPoint inside.
I told you, I'd show you.
Yeah. Sort of. I mean, to be fair, that was kind of a mentality I kind of had, because it was kind of like, I'm actually out here working. I'm actually out here doing. It's the arse end of nowhere in North Wales, an old forgotten Victorian town that was probably once quite affluent, that now relies on Prince's Trust grants. But it was things like I'm actually getting paid for playing here, which was sort of massive. And that was my first, I guess, sort of pro gig really. a lot of the drum part is like you'll be playing the music, and that's the sort of the easy part. The hard part for doing panto is the bits where you're interacting with the cast, and the bit I remember the most as being the most sweaty palms like moment was where our guy playing the policeman it was a production of Aladdin, and he's got a bit where he's basically he's got this whole paragraph, this whole monologue, and every time he says a word beginning with the letter P, he was spitting. So like the first line was something like I saw him passing the palace, and so it'd be like pat pat and spitting on someone's spitting in someone's face sort of thing. But every time he did it, I had to hit a triangle to like indicate the fluid, and so I was like, and I had all the words written out, and every time it was a P, I wrote it in a big like capital letters with the marker, so it stood out. And so I was just there like watching his that sound weird, watching his mouth, and like having to hit it in time. And there'd be like 25 hits I'd have to do, and they'd all have to be in time. But there's no click or anything for it's all sort of off the cuff, as it were. But so it's a lot different to sort of a regular turn up and play music sort of thing. Different from normal theatre work as well. It's different from just turning up, reading the score, and going home. But
well, that was going to be one of my questions. Was are you playing to click at all? Because I always think of like if you got dancers and stuff.
Yeah.
If the band's at a different tempo one night to another night, it's like it'll throw them off. Is any of it click, or is it like you just?
Yeah, it's all to click.
Just going back to the sort of the logistics of doing a panto for sort of a 6-week run, like just briefly, accommodation wise, does that get paid for by the panto?
Sort of, but not really. You'll get like a flat fee for the run, and then you'll get.
And you could spend it all on the Ritz if you wanted.
Yeah, sort of. They get. I can't.
They give you a tent.
They give you. No, they give you. I can't remember what the word is for it now, but basically there'll be like the lump of money for the contract, and then in addition. There'll be like an extra 150 a week or something for accommodation and food sort of thing, which will then add up to the total amount you're being paid. I don't know if it'll be like it'll kind of think if you break it down like that, it's like, oh, that's really nice of them. They're paying me this big lump, and then I'm getting this on top. But in actual fact, it's sort of just wording. Because they could pay you like £1,000 or something, or 500 quid, but say, oh, the gig's only 250 quid, but I'm going to give you another 250 for your living expenses. Which sounds really lovely, but actually they couldn't pay you less than that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do the gig at all. The thing, like I said, the thing that's challenging with it is all the non-music stuff. But it's
off of the way, isn't it? Same with weddings. The music's the easy bit. It's all the other shit. Well, I want to switch to original music now. So you mentioned earlier you're in a band at school. So we're gonna go quickly through this. So your first band at school. You said you didn't have a name.
No, we ended up just colloquially known as the band.
Cool. And did you play covers or original music?
We did. We played a Newton Faulkner song, "Dream Catch Me," which we, absolutely rocked the socks off of Year 11 with. Especially when I whacked out one of my favourite Lars Ulrich fills in going into the chorus. Be like bat on like cross stick in the verse, nice and quiet, and then. What song is it from? It's from something off of. It's from their song Blitzkrieg. There's a fill in this drum solo, and it's this big tom fill that's like da da bum bum ba da da, something like that, And so we've been like gat, and I'll be like bum bum into this chorus, and then my little mate's just like, "There's a place I go." What? And we actually had a name. My brother came up with a name because my brother played bass with us, and he came up with the name like, I don't know, the day before we went to do it. He came up with the name Raccoon, but it's spelled like, I think, is it Raccoon City in
Resident Evil?
Resident Evil, yeah. Is it like? Is it that one that's spelt with like a K or something? He ended up being really edgy in like 2000s, and I think we spelt it with a K.
Put an X on the end.
Yeah.
Did you any other shit band names growing up that you were in?
They're not at school. That was my sort of band at school, and then after that would have been. I don't think I was in any bands at college. I don't remember being in any bands at college because, I think my next one was at uni.
What was that band called?
That band was called Cutting Shapes.
Cutting Shapes.
Dance kind of band?
Yeah, yeah, it's like a dance neo soul thing.
Nice.
And then after I left that, I left that band, and they ended up changing their name. I think they're still going. I think
Cutting Sam out of the band.
Yeah. They ended up being called something like Shifty. I think it was like Shifty Lau. I think that's what they're called now. If they're still going. But that was kind of the sort of the main two was Cutting Shapes and good old Raccoon from year 11.
And so currently, you mentioned at the start you're playing with country artist called Danny,
Danny,
and
McMahon,
prog band called Lost in Thought.
Yeah. So Danny's thing came up. So I was playing with a lady called Lily Garland. Shout out Lily, who used to come to your studio and rehearse.
Yeah.
And I think we used to buy a lot of Mars bars off you and
sure.
Coke from your dealing den in the studio. But
Winto's Tuck Shop.
That's the one. So I originally played for Lily. She's a sort of a country singer. I don't know why I said sort of. She's a country singer, and played with her for a bit. And then because I was doing that, when Danny was looking for a new drummer, one of my friends then tagged me in a post saying, "Oh yeah, Sam already plays for a country band, so maybe that'd be a good fit," sort of thing. So I went along and did that, and then my first gig with him was in 2018. I joined his band, and my first gig with him was playing this country festival up in Manchester called Buckle and Boots, and we paid to it's like in like a 300 people tent, and that was the first big like originals band sort of type thing where it was in front of like a decent audience for it.
There was more people in the audience than in the band.
Yeah. Mum or gran aren't there, it's actual people, and like I remember we to be fair to us, we absolutely smashed the set, and I'd only had one rehearsal with them, and I remember before it being like shit, like I don't know how this is going to go. I'd only played, we'd only had one rehearsal. I had charts on the floor. I didn't want to look uncool, so I had my charts on the floor next to me where they couldn't be seen underneath my laptop, which I was triggering backing tracks from. And we absolutely smashed that. And I remember hearing the crowd and being like, fuck yeah, like this is amazing, And then we did some more gigs after that. And then I've played with Danny since, and we've done a lot of we've done a few bits abroad as well. So we sort of done a lot of the UK country circuit. And Danny's just released a stonking new EP called Senses, which we've been now gigging quite a bit. We just this weekend finished playing at Country to Country Festival in London, which was really, really good fun.
The O2?
Yeah. We played on. Sadly not on the big arena stage.
Yeah.
So I'm his giggy drummer. He has a chap called Jay who I'm good friends with, who's always been his studio drummer because they were in bands previously, and he was his original drummer. And they run a studio. So Danny and Drea, our guitarist / producer, run a studio in Bristol called Puzzle Maker, which is a sort of a niche country music studio in Bristol. And so the guys that they have recording there, who they've always had recorded, so Jay and a chap called Danny does bass and a few other musicians, are sort of part of that sound that they have their sort of Puzzle Maker sound. And so they're part of that. So then my job in that with that project is solely live. Whereas,
and how does that make you feel, Sam?
All right, I'm all right with it.
You okay with it?
I'm over it. Okay. It's one of those things where when I was new to it, it was a bit like in my head where I'd only done stuff with bands. I mean, Lily didn't do a lot of recording stuff. So there wasn't that sort of, it hadn't really crossed my mind. So when I first joined that band, when I joined Danny's band, in my head, I was joining a band as a member, I think, rather than, and I don't think I was really thinking of it as being like a session player or as a musician for hire. So initially I remember being a bit like, I'd quite like to do recordings as well.
What I was going to ask about was because I met you when we did these gigs, because we did a gig in Guildford, and then we did one. The one I remember is the one in Portsmouth Guildhall, not on the big
So this
stage.
is you, George, playing with fellow country.
Yeah, so I was playing with
Elliot
Joseph. And there we go.
Yeah, just saw your crotch. Yeah,
yeah, that. Just do the rest of the podcast like that.
Degrading.
So I was playing with Elliot Joseph, and you were playing with Danny and Lily Garland. And I remember thinking, because that was the first time I met you, I was like, wow, this guy like, he loves his country music, but like you. And I was thinking, I don't know, I didn't know if that was because I started playing for Elliot because I got on with him and he needed a drummer, and but I was never
he was desperate.
I was never like the biggest fan of country music,
Yeah.
But then I sort of grew to like it, through playing with Elliot, because I was like, oh, these are interesting drum parts and stuff, And looking back on your, what you listened to as a teen and stuff, it sounded more sort of like rock orientated. And then you're now playing for like two country artists. Like, were you a country music fan, or was it like, you sort of grew to play it because that's what you were playing?
Gig's a gig. Yeah.
I remember a mate of mine from uni sharing a Brad Paisley song on Facebook, listening to that, having never listened to country before. So this is before I even played for Lily. And thinking, this is lovely. It was some I don't know, some soppy country song. I think it might have been from, because he did a lot of things for the Cars films. I think it might have been from that soundtrack or something. But I remember hearing it and thinking, oh, this is really lovely. So then I had a deep dive into Brad Paisley's catalogue, and I got really into his music. And then that weirdly then coincided with Lily looking for a drummer. So at the time I was on a bit of a country music binge, but my sort of love, my music that I've always listened to at home. I mean, I've listened to a lot of different stuff. Like I had a big jazz phase as well, sort of towards the end of college.
That's classic age for getting into a bit of jazz.
It's like, I'm a musician now. This is what I do.
I'm above you. I'm above you all. You simpletons.
I get it. Do you not get it? I get it.
Yeah, don't you get it? Don't you just? You can take your top 40.
But the music.
Start wearing a tie to college. Do you know what I mean?
There was always that kid. There was always that.
Or a bow tie. Just wears a bow tie. What are you doing?
It was sometimes the same. It was either
drinks wine.
It was either the same person as, or
get a 4-pack of Fosters.
Ben, let the man talk, for fuck's sake.
It was either the same person as, or they would be the two people as the same guy that wore shorts throughout the year.
Yeah, even when it's cold.
Even when it's cold, he would either be the bow tie man, bow tie boy, or
bow tie and shorts.
Yeah, so it was sort of coincided. The music I've always loved playing and listening to has always been heavier stuff. So, like I said, I was really into Metallica and Megadeth and like all that thrash stuff in school. I got really into progressive rock and progressive metal in college, which coincided with the jazz stuff, and then I also got into a bit of metalcore as well when I got to uni, which sort of simmered down a bit. So I don't listen to really heavy stuff anymore. But I absolutely love my prog stuff. I think I really love music that makes me think and stuff that makes my brain work. And I think that's why I enjoy doing shows, because there's so much to concentrate on. My brain can't really wander. And so then which is now sort of aided with playing with Lost in Thought.
Let's move on to that, because I remember you telling me about this when I was talking to you, when I think you just started playing in the band, and you were saying there was I think you playing double kick in this band, and you were just like, there's this new part and it's mad and I'm trying to practice it. And I remember, that definitely, shows that is true, that you're like, you try and find music that's like, makes you think, because that was clearly, those parts were like tricky. It wasn't just, simple rock beats. It was like, this is hard work, So, how did that band come about? Oh yeah.
So you, from what I understand, chatted to you before, you joined this band. They were already a band.
Yeah.
And you auditioned.
I did. Yeah. So they've been going for I think just over a decade, and they sort of the short story there is they were originally signed to a Swedish label, released their first album, were doing a European tour, and then got into a nasty accident, which sort of like a road traffic accident, which put them out of it for a while. And then I don't know if there was some fallings out or whatever, but the band sort of simmered down for a while, and then they got back together, recorded a new album in 2017, 2018, released it in 2018 anyway. The album Renaissance, which is it's the first album I've listened to in a while where I'd listened to it from start to finish, and I was like, there's no filler. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, obviously other people might, opinions might differ, but it's the first time I've listened to an album in a couple of years, and I was like, I can listen to that from start to finish and not hit skip. But and I knew their drummer from BIM, so Chris, who was their old drummer. I remember him talking about recording this new album when we were there, and then or maybe they were working on it at the time or something. And and then after I left BIM, I don't know, under what circumstances or whatever, but Chris ended up leaving. And I remember being like, and then at the time when he was in the band, I remember thinking, damn, I'd love to play for a band like that. Because it's like, it's sort of the nice mix between the heavy sort of shreddy sort of music that I liked from growing up, and the sort of technical, time signature-y, weirdly stuff. And then anyway, they put a call out saying, "Oh, we need a new drummer. Is anyone keen on auditioning and that kind of thing?" And so I thought, "Oh, fuck it, I'll send them an email." And this was during I think it was towards the end of the first lockdown in the pandemic. So this was 2020. And so all of the auditions were over Zoom. I recorded. So they were like, okay, here's a bunch of all our really difficult crap. Get this done. Record yourself playing it. Send it to us. And then once we've done that, we'll then either, if we're out of lockdown, we'll meet up, or if not, then we'll do a Zoom call. We ended up having to do a Zoom call. But luckily for me, because we were in lockdown and this shit was fucking really hard, I had like 6 months to get good at it. So I bought myself. I had a double kick pedal, but I hadn't properly played double kick in about 5 or 6 years, because there's not much room for it in country music. So then I.
I was gonna bring this up because we've talked about on this show a while back. We mentioned your double kick pedal.
Oh yeah.
You went big. You went big on it.
I did. Is the video? Is there going to be video available from this?
No, but we'll do a screenshot for.
I'll show you. I'll send you the picture anyway. But I took a picture yesterday of the.
Send that to us, and we'll get that on the Instagram.
Yeah, the blue, the gold, and the silver. It's a Yamaha. I couldn't tell you what the serial number, the line it is from Yamaha, but it's basically the top of the range one, and before you start paying like thousands, I think it was about 600 quid, 650 quid. This was down at Graham Russell's in Fareham.
Shout out Graham Russell.
Shout out Graham Russell. What a legend. I bought a China from him when I was in year 10, I think I was, when his shop was still just things stacked in his garage.
Yeah. I got drum cases from his, Just go to his house. And he just opens the garage and it's just loads of shit in there. You're like, cool, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is awesome. And then now he's got the biggest drum shop in the country. And went along to his, and they, in the way that they do, they didn't encourage me to get it, but they explained why these pedals would be the better choice. and the blue looks fucking amazing.
Yeah. I remember you brought it into the studio, and I was like, yeah, I want one now.
Ben, validate these for me, please.
But you're in competition. We recently talked about the Tama Iron Cobra 600 Gold Edition. The whole thing's gold, and I'm like, ooh. If I was to get a new double pedal, I'd be torn between the two. Because I can't just go silver now, like standard. There's got to be a little bit of flair in there.
This is a bit like my students that love their Pokemon cards, and they'll be like, "Oh, I've got Charizard," and the other one will be like, "Oh, I've got shiny Charizard," and they're like making out like the shiny one absolutely shits on the normal one, and I'll say like, "Oh, so what can shiny Charizard do that the other Charizard can't?" And they'll be like,
the same but shiny.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same, but it's a different color. It's like, okay.
I think that's a deep-rooted psychological thing.
Yeah.
From collecting Panini football stickers when I was a kid, that you're after the shiny.
Yeah.
The shiny is elusive. It's elite.
Yeah, and then if you got a shiny after you'd already got the regular one,
you wield power with a shiny.
It's like a bit of remorse removing the original sticker, but none once you get the shiny in there.
Oh, yeah. So were you a regular user of double kick before Lost in Thought?
When I first got my double kick, so the kit I currently play is a Mapex Orion.
Yeah, I wanted to ask that as well. Yeah. Talk us through your current setup.
Yeah, so current setup is it's a Mapex Orion. I got that after, so it was my second kit. I got it after the Trixon kit as an upgrade, and it was like their flagship. It was Mapex's flagship kit at the time. Pardon me, but there was a clearance sale at Drum Shop up in Gateshead, and they had it for like 650 quid, like shell pack. It was like 13-inch tom, 16. It was like a 13 by 11 tom. I think they measured it at. I think they must have got it wrong because I'm pretty sure it's a 12. But like I think. Oh no, sorry, I've replaced it with a 12. So yeah, it came with a 13 by 11 and 16 by 13 floor tom, and then a 22 by 20 kick, which is like a fucking cannon.
You say this is only your second kit?
You sort of, yeah.
Same as me. Both got a brother called Tom. Both 27. Both only ever had two kits.
Both got hair. No, hang on.
That's a shame.
Sorry.
So you got Mapex Orion shells. Kick. One up, one down. What snare?
So when I got that kit, I bought a Black Panther maple and walnut with it, which was awesome. I was saving up for this bird's eye maple one that was like 250 quid, and they were like, "Oh, we don't actually have that, but we've got this limited edition walnut one." It's like, all right, yeah, and it was half the price. It was like 175 quid. So that was my main snare for ages, and then I ended up replacing the rack tom on the Orion with I think it was a 12, or at least it was a 13, but it's shorter, so I could actually get it over the bass drum, because I ended up buying a rack off a mate of mine so I could actually have the tom over the bass drum. But anyway, yeah, and then a few years ago I bought a Ludwig 400 vintage one, so 1970, I think it's 1970, blue and olive badge. It's their super sensitive. It's got the like bloody suspension bridge throw-offs on either side. And that one's amazing. So I used that one, but I ended up using that one either for a bit of country stuff or for like jazz gigs and theatre. And then 2 years ago, I bought old Pearl Export, going back to that, an old Pearl Export off a mate of my dad's whose son had like decided to give up playing drums, and they were like, "Oh, well, you can use it for your music school." So I got this kit off them, and they were giving it to me for free, and it was sort of, knackered, things falling off it, and none of the hardware was matching, and things sort of just glued together. Drums sounded wicked though. Again, also had pinstripes on them, and then but with this little Pearl Export shell pack came with this Black Panther, this steel Black Panther snare, and I was like, "Are you sure you don't want any money for this?" And they're like, "Oh no, it's going," and I then ended up using this kit for teaching, not the snare drum, but the export I did, because that's why they were giving it me, and they're like, no, it's going to be used for good cause and this kind of thing, and I was like, do you not know how, like, this is a good snare, like, anyway, so I got that from those guys, and then that's now my main snare, the steel Black Panther, and that, like, I think it's a 14 by, I want to say 6, but I'll double check. But yeah, and it's just like it's a sphincter clencher, that one.
I also have a Black Panther snare, so this is just getting weird now in terms of, coincidences and similarities.
Yeah, I have a Black Panther.
Did you have a Mapex Saturn as well, Ben? Is it you that's got Mapex Saturn?
Yeah. Sweet. So to wrap up, we're Lost in Thought. So you've been in the studio with them.
Yeah.
But nothing that's not out yet, is it?
No. So.
But we'll put links to Lost in Thought on the description so people can go and check them out.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and with Lost in Thought, the difference between that and playing with Danny is that I am like a fully fledged member of the band rather than being a musician for hire. So I am involved in the recording and socials and all that fun stuff.
Sweet. George, you wanted to talk about? Yeah, we'll wrap up with your Hampshire Drum School, giving that a shout out.
Yeah, because we for a little bit, Sam and I taught at the old blacksmiths, on separate days, obviously.
I welcomed you into my cocoon. I let you
have room free. It is yours, boys.
Incubate into my incubator. George has now fled.
I've now fled.
It's a bit like Alien, where we were all stuck up. Is it Alien, or where we're all stuck up on the wall?
I don't know what that is, but yes, that's exactly what it was like.
Just a little pod, and then out comes another drum teacher. Right, here's Seven Nation Army.
So yeah, well, because I noticed, obviously you were teaching, but I noticed that you were doing it more professionally than I was, in that you had it set up under the blanket of Hampshire Drum School, which I thought was really cool. So I was just quick questions. Like, I mean, I know you teach at schools, but like privately teaching, did you start teaching privately just with people you knew, or like, friends of friends, and then make Hampshire Drum School? Or did you make Hampshire Drum School and then, because it is set up, well, you've got a website and you got, it looks the biz basically.
Oh,
but how did it all come about is my question.
I don't know, I feel all flustered.
No gigs, needed some money.
Well, yeah.
I feel flustered after the sweet talking. Stop it.
Oh, so but I mean, like, did you start like, did you have a few students and then go, oh, actually, if I make this, because that was my thing, because I kind of, when I started teaching, I just had a few flyers and just put them up in cafes and pub toilets, and then I got a few students, but I didn't really do anything beyond that. Whereas I was always aware that you had quite a lot of, you got a website, I mean, like more than I had.
So actually, Ben's right. It was, at the time, there were no gigs apart from a bit of local theatre and some Lily stuff. And straight out of uni. So to cycle back to your first question, George. Straight out of uni, I ended up working as a painter and decorator as for bread and butter, and then my friend Darren, who was MDing the show down on Hayling Island, it was a production of Carrie, which actually ended up where I ended up meeting my other half. But I turned up one day having just painted some student house in Stanmore, like one of the local housing estates, and he goes, "I've got a job for you," and it was like, okay. And he was like, "Do you want to teach some drums?" I was like, "Yeah, right. That's more related to what I want to do than painting student houses and sanding, flipping walls and things." So then I started teaching for Portsmouth Music Academy, which was like a privately run, or is a privately run tuition hub. And then after a couple of years, I was like, well, I could definitely be earning more. And I ended up I wanted to run my own business anyway, because with these academies, and like, they're not alone. Like I've been to a few of them, and it's very much you're self-employed to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I wanted to be fully self-employed. So I wanted to. So when I left, I was at Portsmouth Music Academy for 2 years, and then I was like, well, what's a good marketing ploy for getting students? And I had a couple of students from the academy, so I taught there for 2 years, and a couple of students when I left then contacted me being like, well, you're my drum teacher, like, I'd really like to carry on lessons. So I had like a couple of students that came over with me. And Ben was at the old Blacksmiths was my first venue for teaching in, because it was like, well, my students are currently in Portsmouth. And so Ben said, yeah, all right, yes, please, give me your money.
Well, you said, look, I've got these, all these private students. They live in the area. I've been coming here rehearsing with Lily and stuff. Is there any way I can have a room to do some private teaching? And I'd already got George in doing stuff. And I was like, yeah. So
yeah, I feel like you and I had probably discussed it, me and you, Sam, about like, had said, yeah, ask Ben. I think I said like my days of Tuesday and Thursday, so you can't have them. You can have Monday if you want it.
Yeah, and
no, I'm not the boss at the studio whatsoever.
But much to your statement once, well, I can't remember the origins of it. But one George,
I've been working there for like a week.
Yeah, and in some conversation described us as business partners.
And we'll never let it go because it was just, we were so not. But yeah, no, I do remember being like, come and teach here, even though it's not my studio.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so that really started me off. So that was the end of 2019, and that sort of got me started with that was with a couple of students that I'd already previously taught, and then I set up Hampshire Drum School. So I thought, well, all these academies and stuff, and the other, I suppose you'd call it competition, competition in the same business, were all like cities or the local town or something. So I was like, fuck it, I'm taking the county, mate.
Yeah.
No one's done that yet. So
well, just you boys wait till I set up the England Drum School.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, as soon as you go, if I set up the English Drum Academy, it just starts to get really racist, doesn't it? The English Drum Academy.
British drummer. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a weird stigma behind calling something the English something, isn't there?
So
you set up Hampshire Drum
School. Yeah, I thought, I'm taking the county. Screw it. That'll get me more traction online and stuff as well, which was mainly a big part of it. So I then spent like almost like all the time I had as soon as I decided that it was going to be Hampshire Drum School, I spent like an entire, I think it might have been a fortnight, like all the time I had basically in that fortnight, making my website, creating the logo, finding, whatever pictures from gigs I could use for the website, and just like trying to like cram it all together so that I could then start advertising myself and start getting some work, because by that point I was absolutely skinned. And like we said, like gigs even if gigs pay, they're not often enough sometimes. So so then I set up Hampshire Drum School, and then as soon as I did that, I put a thing out on Facebook saying, this is my new business venture, and some of my friends that work at the University of Winchester near me said, oh, well, our drum teacher's just left. And they didn't have any students lined up for me, but they were like, do you want to take over, sort of thing? And so I did. I then, they were like, oh, if you help out in like our concert band, and this is now changed, but so we had a sort of an agreement. It'd be like, if you come and tutor the percussionists in the concert band, you can have the room for free and use it for your private students, sort of thing. So I ended up doing that, and then through a lot of sort of Google ads and Facebook ads and things like that, I then started building up a client base of students. Ended up getting a couple of schools. A couple, thanks to my friend Russ Tarley, legend of a Portsmouth drummer, Russ Tarley, he was really good for that. So so we're currently standing at 31 private students, and then I've got 3 schools as well now. So it's actually full-time hours. I'm pretty sure it's just over 30 hours a week I'm doing teaching.
That's good, isn't it?
And I had an email from someone this week saying, oh, is your music... This felt really weird. Someone emailed me and said, does your music school need another teacher? Because I'm, another drum teacher looking for some work. And I was like, in my head, I was like, I mean, it's just me. Like, there's no... it's a school.
I can relate to that. The studio, people asking for jobs, and you think there's enough work for me to pay someone else for you to come and have a job? You're having a laugh, mate.
Yeah, but it has got me thinking of.
I get people phone up like cold spam business calls. Like, could I speak to the person in charge of your office and stationery supplies? It's like, it's just me, mate. It's just
speaking. But I mean, it has sort of got me thinking about, if I took on another teacher, would I be able to teach at the same venue, or would they start as a dep teacher for me where, say I've got a gig that I can't make a day's teaching, could they come in and fill in for that, and then I'd build up their own, then build them up a client base or whatever. But
I'd say that's the beauty of being called Hampshire Drum School, is that you can make it like that. It's like, it's not the Saunders, whatever.
No, you went there.
Sorry, it's not.
Colonel,
it's
not Colonel
your name.
Sanders.
Yeah, so they're not turning up thinking, "Oh, why haven't I got Sam?" It's very much a company, which is like, not to promote my thing, but Drum Coach Online. That was the thing behind that, because I didn't want to call it like the George Pickering Drum School, because it'd be like, who's he anyway? Do you know what I mean? It's like,
and it's not searchable, because no one's going to think.
No one's searching.
If they don't know you, if they don't know your name, then it's kind of moot at that point, isn't it? But if they type in online drum lessons, up your website.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why Hampshire Drum School's so good, because people will just type in drum lessons in Hampshire, and then that's surely one of the first things to pop up. So it's like,
people type in drum lessons Winchester, Hampshire, Portsmouth, anything that's within that, either those words or within that sort of diameter of that radius, then I usually come up on search results. So
we'll put a link to Hampshire Drum School, Drum Coach Online, and my new English Drum Academy. We'll get a link to all three of those up.
Can we merge our companies and just?
We should also put a picture of this is just literally thinking. A picture of 3 Toms of a drum kit, but on each skin is a picture of our brothers. And it's a game of guess the Tom, and you got to guess whose brother is which Tom. I think mine will be pretty obvious when you see mine. Cool, yeah. Well, we'll put links to Danny. What's Danny's surname again? What's his?
McMahon, McMahon.
So Danny McMahon, Lost in Thought, Hampshire Drum School.
Yeah, and should have some. Should have new single out with Lost in Thought. New one should be out this year.
And there's just one thing I want to finish on. One final question.
Yes, mate.
Who's your favourite delivery company?
Question.
Oh shit.
Yeah, they're on the real stuff, big stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of DPD.
Yeah, boy. Come on. Another one for the DPD.
If I ever get a text from Hermes, I'll start getting sweaty.
I think that's been a good old lovely chat.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sam, for joining us. Being our first guest on Drum and Drummer. I hope you had a lovely time.
Thank you for having me, guys. I've really enjoyed that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was great.
It's been a pleasure. I'll see you on Monday.
See you on Monday, mate.
Cheers. Bye. So there we go. That was our interview with Sam.
Yep. Hope you enjoyed it.
Yep.
Hope it was informative. If you're looking to get into panto work, there you go. There's some stories from panto.
Yeah. Spend 6 weeks of your life away and miss Christmas.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds lovely. No, it's great chatting to Sam. I've known him for a couple of years now, but it was very interesting to get a proper in-depth insight into his career and everything that sort of led up to it.
It is actually, not to I don't know if it spoils the illusion or anything, but yeah, speaking to these people that are friends of ours, but then in a more sort of, interview scenario, sort of tell you more about it than they perhaps
dig a little deeper.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Is it time for?
It's time for Tom of the Week.
Tom of the Week. That's a lovely, lovely Tom.
And this week's Tom of the Week is gold medalist diver Tom Daly.
Good.
Finally got his gold at
Good for him.
At the last Olympics, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
It's mental. He went to the Olympics so young.
Yeah.
It's insane.
But that was almost his niche, not niche, but like it was like that was his thing. And now he must be late 20s now.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing him and just being like, he's a young lad.
Yeah. Actually, bringing it back, we mentioned Jason Statham the other week. He used to be a diver.
Did
you know that?
No,
yeah,
I didn't.
He used to be like a proper competitive diver. Anyway.
Did you know, one more thing, Arnold Schwarzenegger used to be a doorman for the Wedgwood Rooms.
Is he?
Isn't that
because he used to train down... yeah. I knew he used to train. Also, right, here's another one. So, Roger Black, the Olympic runner,
right,
from the 90s, his brother plays French horn for one of the big London orchestras and became head of brass at the Royal College of Music. And they both grew up sort of Fareham Gosport way, and actually for a time lived in the same village that I grew up in.
Oh, fair play.
There you go.
I once nearly cycled into Hugh Dennis while he was driving his car. So there's another one.
So there we go. Anyway, congratulations, Tom Daly. You can pop this next to your gold medal that you are this week's Tom of the Week. Congratulations.
Well done, Tom.
And we're just going to finish up with a little trip into the drum dumpster.
Oh, yeah. Let me get my phone. Let's see what you sent me. No, it's all right. I got it. I'm ready.
It's ready.
Time is of the essence.
I saw this on Instagram, and this is a drum company, which I'd never heard of, called Varus. Varus Drums.
Yeah.
I think it's pronounced Varus. Custom drums.
Wow.
And what I think they're a Spanish company.
Yeah.
But the guy who creates the drums is originally Italian.
Originally? What is he now?
Well, he lives in Spain. So,
right.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Thomas Mantovani. And he's made Varus drums, and it's custom drums, and some of them look fucking lush. But yeah, these drums are
they look brilliant.
They look amazing. There was something listed on their website. I was having a look through, and it was something about they were started in 2013 by Thomas Mantovani. And they aim for a more sophisticated, modern, casual appearance. And they're inspired by the great Italian motor racing brands.
Wow.
And the passion reflected in their products. And I'm pretty sure they had, looking on their site, I mean, some of the snare drums look insane.
Yeah.
And it looks like they're retailing sort of between £400 and £600. Yeah. So there's the Ducati kit, just under £3,000. So if you go into the shop, George, and just scroll down, you'll see the Ducati kit, and it's a metallic dark grey satin with carbon fibre, big fucking red drum hoops on the kick.
I mean, they're all amazing.
Yeah.
The snares, the Ducati, that's unbelievable. But the snares alone, the colours, you know.
Yeah, and like the lugs are so different, and there's steel, there's wood, there's brass. But I think if I ever come into a bit of money, I'd love to have a punt on one of these.
Definitely. Even the Black Forest snare, like the artwork on that, there's like birds and trees.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's good about custom drum companies, is they can sort of do that a bit more. There's a custom drum company in Hove called Tiki Drums, which is run by Preston Prince, who teaches, or at least used to teach at BIM. And he runs a course where you can make your own snare drum. And I've had friends that have done it, and they said it's because his knowledge on,
Can we go? Can we do a podcast trip?
I'd love to. Yeah.
And make a Drum and Drummer branded snare.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Let's do it.
And then don't hold me to this, but do a competition giveaway.
That would be amazing.
How good would that be?
Yeah.
But Varus Drums, we'll put the link in the thing, as well as all of Sam's links to all his music projects. They'll all be in there. But that wraps up this week's episode.
Yeah. Hope you enjoyed. First guest.
Yeah. And we'll see you next week, where we have another guest.
Ooh.
Who's it gonna be? Find out next week. Okay?
Perfect.
All right, boy.
Bye-bye.
Good chatting to you, mate. See you later. Bye.